We go live with the summit of the G77 and China. We are going to listen to Mottley, the Prime Minister of Barbados.
60 years of a callous and brutal blockade crippling the economy of this nation, but exacerbated by unacceptable and unjustified declaration by the last presidency of the United States of America of this country as a sponsor of state terrorism. I speak with clarity on this matter because in 1976, an act of terrorism was perpetrated against Cubana Flight 455 that led to 73 people dying as the plane took off from my country, Barbados. No one has ever been held accountable in spite of the mountain of evidence available. And each year, we commemorate the sacrifice of these people, the Cubans, the Guyanese, and the Koreans who lost their lives as victims of the worst aspects of geopolitics. I was only 10 years old when this incident happened, but I will never forget it, as you would appreciate. Nor the moment when El Jefe, President Fidel Castro, came to Barbados to unveil the monument with us. It reinforced the reality of the world in which we live, in which the mighty and the powerful have acted as they wish and accountability. Ironically, we understand the importance of teaching our children how to be fair, and we tell them that each and every day, but we forget it when it comes to the actions of adults and countries. I have come today with a simple message, that the hour is now and the future is ours to grasp together. It's therefore not surprising that almost 80 years after the establishment of the United Nations, the majority of the world's population are awakening to the reality that our future cannot remain within the shadows of an order that the multilateral institutions of the last century promised us would be a feature of our past and not the bane of our modern existence. Regrettably, what we have seen with the advance of years is a consolidation of an order that the multilateral institutions of the last century promised us would be a feature of our past and not the bane of our modern existence. Regrettably, what we have seen with the advance of years is a consolidation of power and wealth in the hands of an absolute few. And that concentration is likely to be continued as a result of the privatization of knowledge, research, science, and technology. My friends, the lack of access to a level playing field is not only found in matters of high science and technology, but it is as basic as in the access of our students to digital tools to help them participate in the world in which we live, particularly as we were in the pandemic that restricted movement and access to tuition for many of our children. But it goes further for those in Africa who constitute part of the 600 million who do not have access to electricity. As unjust as that scenario is, it is further reflected in the absence of a just industrial strategy for the global south. It is reflected, as we've heard over and over this morning, in the vaccine apartheid, in spite of the clear moral imperative that exists for all of us as human beings to save as many lives as possible, especially in times of global peril. Those few people who lived in the developed world who could sleep easily at night were among the minority of the world's population, confident in the knowledge that their governments would provide to them access to life-saving therapeutics and vaccines. It is perhaps most acutely seen as we fight the climate crisis, not climate change as others continue to call it, but a climate crisis. The people of Dominica and Pakistan and Libya more recently have now come to experience this in real terms. And as I mentioned Libya, may I use this opportunity on behalf of my people and government to express our sympathy and profound regret at the significant loss of life and damage to property that the people of Libya and indeed the people of Morocco have experienced in recent weeks, days. There is no doubt, my friends, that the world in which we live is experiencing unprecedented crises, multiple. And it has done so at a time when mankind has attained more scientific engineering and technological progress than at any other time in history. The difficulty is that, like with all else, inventions can be used either for noble causes or wicked purposes. This means two things. First, our awareness and alertness must be constant. And secondly, it does matter, as we heard from my dear brother Prime Minister Gonzalez this morning, who owns and who controls the technology. So why must we be alert now? Because, like many other temptations from time immemorial, our reliance on things that allow us great convenience and happiness cause us to be easy prey. Easy prey if we do not remember our purpose and our mission. The rise of social media and AI threatens to destabilize at best and enslave at worst billions of people with an ease of conquest that miniaturizes the achievements of the Spanish Armada. Why? Does control and ownership matter as we go into the future? We have seen that in times of scarcity, domestic interests and ethnic relationships have mattered more than fairness and preserving the effectiveness of our multilateral institutions, whose very existence are intended to preserve fairness on a level playing field. And how will we use the science and technology to protect the planet? If that science and technology is only within the province of the wealthy North, how will we avert the loss of life in the South, the inevitable climate migration, and the consequential economic and social implosion that, if persists without course correction, will threaten the very viability of our countries, but perhaps worse, the very existence of the only planet we know that can sustain life? I repeat, commitments made to protect our planet will be empty promises if we do not have the capacity to implement. Lack of access to technology and critical plan have reinforced for us as nation states why it is critical that we collaborate and expose as many of our citizens, including our women, to education, to opportunity, to finance, so that they too may innovate and expand the knowledge base of all of humanity. The absence of policy space for governments allow us or refrain from us being able to pursue our development agenda in the SDGs. The inequitable access to finance, whether from international financial institutions or for fair terms and conditions from the private capital markets for the global South. All of these impede our ability to provide chances for our people to explore greater opportunities in science and technology. And that is why we have worked with so many to settle the Bridgetown Initiative, or the outcomes of UNCTAD 15, or indeed the outcomes of the Buenos Aires Declaration at CELAC earlier this year, and the commitments both in Paris and Brussels in recent months. My friends, we need to be able to see the expansion of science, technology, and innovation for our people in the developing world, but it will not happen by serendipity. It will only happen if we accept that the hour is now and the future is ours to grasp. And how many more noble and moral imperatives must we remind the world that is there for us to seize, to be the subject of this research? I referred earlier to the Spanish Armada, but it was really the invention of gunpowder and navigational tools that unleashed terror and the quest for dominion for centuries, as we continue to experience. Today's world values knowledge and services, and it is against that background, therefore, we understand that there will be an expansion exponentially of power and a consolidation of wealth for those who have access. But there is a dangerous part, because apart from nation states, the rise of individual titans and the rise of multinational corporations, whose balance sheets dwarf the majority of the world's states, now put us in a precarious position if we do not act with solidarity and with purpose. As nation states, We cannot choose between investment in food and shelter and rebuilding from climate crises, rather than investing in education and technology and science. We need the policy space, we need the finance, and we need the commitment to work together to overcome these hurdles if there is to be a last stand in the name of the majority of the world's people. We need to be able to move to a digital world from an analog world without the fear of being in perpetual subjugation. My friends, the reality is that we need solidarity if we are to secure justice and opportunity. It cannot be business as usual, and we cannot allow division to separate us as it has done for centuries. We must use these science and technological tools as instruments of empowerment and not as tools of oppression if we are to work together for our people. If science and technology is not to be allowed to run amok in an unregulated global environment, we need equally to appreciate what must be done in terms of accountability and transparency by our multilateral institutions and through domestic legal enforcement if we are not to see the undermining of our democracies and the unraveling of progressive opportunities for development. My friends, there can be no more appropriate place, Miguel, for us to have met in this meeting today. Your country has been one of the true beacons of the global south and of the developing world with respect to innovation through science and technology. With little, you have done much, in spite of 60 years of blockade and terrorism against you and your people in terms of deprivation. As importantly, you have truly walked the walk of anchoring these innovations in a noble mission of service to humanity at large, but equally individuals from villages to towns, as the people of Cuba have helped so many who could not otherwise help themselves. We leave you, therefore, with a clear example that if we are as sovereign states to make a difference, then we can only do so with the majority intent of coming together. The reality is that each of us has taken the time to come here on the eve of the UN General Assembly, because this is testimony to the esteem in which we hold you and this movement of G77 and China. It is an important and timely opportunity to have the discussions that will reinforce solidarity. I say to you simply that frank exchange of views on highly disruptive technologies and the opportunity for empowerment of our people will allow us to determine whether we use them to aid us or hurt us. The hour, my friends, is upon us. And either we work together and multilateralism stays as our hallmark, or indeed we suffer the consequences of being victims. There is far more for us to achieve. To paraphrase our late beloved Comandante Fidel Castro, and I quote, "It does not matter how small you are if you have faith and a plan of action." Let us pledge today, my friends, not because we are here as a matter of form, but with purpose and intent, that we go from here to the General Assembly and to COP, not to be victims of an order that continues to want to subjugate us, but as shapers of a future that humanity most needs when it faces its greatest crisis for planet, for people, for biodiversity. We have the power to seize the future, for it is ours. Thank you.